This is the Star Wars podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Star Wars Ahsoka, Part 3, Time to Fly.
Isn't this just another attempt to gain New Republic resources to aid in what has ultimately been your personal quest to find Ezra Bridger?
Ezra vanished while fighting Thrawn.
And that you conveniently use a threat of Thrawn's return to acquire those resources that could be put to a more practical purpose, helping the people of our fledgling republic.
Were you ever in the war, Senator?
No.
Just sat back and waited to see who came out on top?
Welcome back, fellow rebels. This is the Star Wars podcast on TV Podcast Industries. That intro included timpani drums, of course, but we are here talking about Star Wars Ahsoka Part 3, Time to Fly.
How did you not notice the timpani drums after, 65 episodes of The Bad Batch on Ahsoka?
No, I did, but I just...
First time you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's the first time I mentioned it. There's always a first time for everything, but... Speaking of first, I am your first and only host, John.
I'm your second and additional host, Derek.
And rounding out the trio, come on, there is both light, dark, and the grey. I will let our fellow rebels decide who is what in this triumphancy. But yes, I am Chris.
Why did you point to yourself, Chris, when you said grey?
Because I am I have a lot of grey hair in my beard at the moment. Parented is putting more than a few grey whiskers on it. And I'm going, I think it's more silver fox than silver purgle.
I think you're going full Balin Skull, actually. So maybe it's light, dark, and orange.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, the light at the moment that's on you is making you look quite orange.
That's just, I've been tangoed for any of our UK listeners. Do you remember that? You've been tangoed.
Yes. But anyway, enough about tangos and timpani drums and, of course...
Visual jokes for an audio podcast.
Jokes. Yeah, exactly, for an audio podcast. Yeah. Yes, we're here to talk about Part 3 of Dave Filoni's Ahsoka.
Absolutely. And welcome back, Chris, we should say.
Yay!
Because we've gone quite a long time without having Chris on the podcast.
Well, I think because we had such a big, a little bit of a chat before, I forgot about that. Yes. Yeah. So welcome back, Chris. I'm sure all the fellow rebels are looking forward to hearing your dulcet tones once again on the podcast.
I will bring chopper level opinions into this. You may not understand them, but you get the general gist of what I'm saying.
Excellent.
I am Chopper.
Yes, and of course that's how you sing as well, as like Chopper.
Yeah.
Which means you're my favourite droid. There you go.
I have to bring in Chopper on this. And now I'll bring in Chopper on this. That was just Chris.
Indistinguishable. Filoni, hire me as your second in command.
The understudy for Dave Filoni's Chopper.
Yes, exactly.
But anyway, welcome back, Chris. You weren't here with us for the first two episodes. So what did you think overall so far of Ahsoka?
So unsurprisingly, I'm loving it. There are parts where I am kind of would wish to know where we're going in terms of the greater scheme, because I'm one of those fans who have read the books to Heir to the Empire and Thrawn's OG bits in the books. So a lot of that I've read, and I'm like, okay, so how are you getting to some of those places when I know there's a potential film called Heir to the Empire coming? So that's where I am like,
Well, we did talk about it last week, Chris. The subtitle for this series is actually Heir to the Empire. So who is the heir to the Empire will possibly be discovered during this season of Ahsoka. They are taking inspiration from those books, but as you say, those books are non-canonical anymore, but there is a new Thrawn trilogy written by Timothy Zahn. So the character came back, and we've seen a lot of him in Rebels, of course, and, which I know you haven't had the chance to watch much of.
I haven't watched much of. During my second COVID, or it was still not COVID, but it was COVID, I managed to devour a fair amount of Rebels.
Excellent.
And then I did the the unthinkable. I watched a number of key episodes because a number of publications went, really want to know what's happening with Ahsoka? Watch this episode of Rebels, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So I got a lot of the gist of what's happening. The filler I missed.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, I think we're going on the pathway to Peridia, actually, Chris.
Yes, we are.
Or will we? Or will we?
Or at least that's what they told us in the last episode.
Exactly.
So we do know the path. We do know the path. And hopefully they're going to find Thrawn and maybe even Ezra Bridger on the other end of that.
Yes. Although, what was I don't know whether this is a deep fake rumor that is going around or whatever, but there is a theory out there that Marok could be Ezra Bridger.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes absolutely... So I don't buy that one.
No, I don't.
Very quickly is because then how the hell did he get back and Thrawn's still stuck on the other side of the galaxy?
Do you know, I read that theory and see, we're going to get into spoilers for this particular episode. So just to make sure everybody's watched episode 3, because one of the things in this episode is we have the Purrgil actually in the episode here, which are the creatures that transported both Ezra Bridger and Thrawn to the other side of the galaxy.
Originally, exactly.
So we see them over the top of this planet. Marok's there. Well, did he get brought back by the Purrgils when they were on their trip back? Like, you know, there is a reason that he could have come back. I just don't believe they would have turned him to the dark side.
No, but I also kind of quite like that twist as well.
I know.
I mean, really, I hope not to some extent, but also I wouldn't be displeased if, you know, separated from Kanan, from all his friends, because, you know, he was willing to trust Darth Maul in in Rebels, but possibly Thrawn with his manipulation. I mean, who knows? So the whole point is that there is all this stuff that has gone on. And we just don't know how Ezra Bridger has evolved in that sense.
Absolutely.
So there is one piece I'll throw in, which is one that I've heard, I don't believe, but there's definitely credence for it, which is Sam Witwer, who voiced Darth Maul in Rebels and Clone Wars, who was the face actor and the actual actor voiceover artist who played Starkiller, Vader's apprentice in the Force Unleashed games.
That's right.
He's in the credits for the first 2 episodes.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
So, but there's no Starkiller. There's no Maul. There's been no other kind of voice that we can't attribute.
Yeah,
except
that's true.
For a little ditty of Marok. So I'm like, I don't know if they'll put in Vader's Starkiller as Vader's apprentice in this, but they could put him in as another kind of
absolutely
son and daughter of the kind of Force.
And Marok's voice is quite distorted.
Yes.
Yeah. So
exactly.
Well, that'd be nice though. That'd be a good little touch.
I think he says a line in this episode. So
he does.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Left. Right.
But it's quite distorted.
Very much Bane and kind of Dark Knight-esque Christian Bale.
It's really interesting speculation. I suppose that's one of the mysteries of the show, isn't it? And I know everybody's done that. That look at the credits is always a good way to tell it. It's also a possibility that that's the credits for the season, and we will see a bigger appearance of Sam Witwer as one of those characters in the future. You know, Darth Maul is still out there, or was still out there at some point anyway. So we could see Darth Maul in a flashback voiced by Sam Witwer again.
Yeah,
maybe.
Excellent. Well, look, let us start to wind up for our spoiler-filled discussion. But before we do, it's just a reminder, fellow rebels, if you're joining us for the first time, you can pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe on any Jedi or Sith podcast player of your choice. We also have our feedback section, and we love to hear from our fellow rebels on all your thoughts, theories, comments, observations on each and every episode of Ahsoka. You can head on over to our Facebook group where we have spoiler posts at facebook.com/groups/ TV Podcast Industries, or you can send your emails into us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com.
Mm-hmm. And if you listen to last week's episode, you'll know that we are carrying out our Ahsoka Cantina quiz for this season. We have already given out the first 2 questions, and we will have the 3rd question later on in this episode. All you need to do is email us at the end of the season with the answer to all 8 questions, and you could be in with a chance to get your hands on some Star Wars Ahsoka goodies. Email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. If you miss any of the questions during the season, you can always go to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, go to pub quizzes up on the top bar, and all the questions will be listed in there as soon as I get the opportunity to upload them.
Excellent
I have one
stuff.
question though. Are droids allowed in the cantina?
Of course they are. In our cantina, everybody's allowed. Because otherwise we wouldn't have Huyang or Chopper. Like, what a terrible cantina it would be.
It certainly would. But let us now get into our spoiler-filled discussion of Part 3, Time to Fly. Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Well, the executive producers for this series are, of course, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy, Colin Wilson, and Carrie Beck. Episode 3, once again, written by Dave Filoni. I think he has the writing credit on every episode of this season. And the director for this episode is Steph Green, who directed episode 2.
Very good.
Yeah. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Star Wars Ahsoka episode 3, Time to Fly?
Sure. While travelling to the Denab system, Sabine Wren restarts her training under Ahsoka and Huyang's guidance as she struggles with her inability to use the Force. Meanwhile, Hera Syndulla meets with Mon Mothma, the Chancellor of the New Republic, and a group of influential senators in order to gain permission to send Republic forces to Seatos, located in the Denab system. Despite Mon Mothma's support, the senators refuse to believe that Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger are alive and deny Hera's request. Having been informed of this by Syndulla, Ahsoka, Sabine, and Huyang discover the Eye of Sion, but are intercepted by a squadron of fighters led by Shin Hati and Marok, as Morgan Elsbeth uses the lasers on the Eye of Sion to fire on them. The group escapes by flying through a pod of giant spacefaring creatures known as Purgil, and land on the surface of Seatos. They take refuge in the forest as Huyang gives his full analysis on the Eye of Sion, which he classifies as a hyper jump gate. However, Shin Hati is aware that they are hiding somewhere in the forest. As a result, her master, Baylan Skoll, dispatches his forces to hunt them down.
Wipe them out, all of them,
well,
I think is what he's looking to do.
Yes. Yeah. But an interesting expression on old Baylan Skoll at the end.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know whether it was uncertainty or something etched across his face. And just because, you know, he kind of was quite honest with Morgan Elsbeth about killing Ahsoka, or hunting her and stopping her because, well, she is a Jedi after all, and he is a mercenary, and he is from the Jedi Academy. So, yeah, I kind of like this element to Baylan Skoll, to be honest, because it kind of makes him a little bit, you know, twisty-turny in that sense.
Yeah.
He's
or
not
potentially.
sick, technically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
in this case, it's like he's been asked to hunt a very rare creature.
Yeah, exactly.
A Jedi. There's no other member of the Jedi Order that he's aware of that's out there, really. At the moment, remember, it's just pretty much Luke and Leia, right?
Yeah.
They haven't set up a new order or anything like that. So, sorry, Chris, you're absolutely right. Grogu is out there at the moment, but nobody revealed as the new Jedi Order at this stage. There's nothing new set up, so not many people will be aware of their existence or how few there are. So, Baylan coming across a Jedi and then being asked to slaughter her effectively seems to be carrying on from last episode. So yeah, good call, John.
Yeah.
One thing I'll quickly just note before we get in, because I don't know where I can fully insert it right now, and it's more a comment. When we've been watching our seasons of Bad Batch, kind of talking about them, one of the bits we've always discussed is some of the interesting bits of seeing of that when the Galactic Empire was actually becoming up, like the Empire was becoming the Empire. With the credits, the single credit came in. This is I'm finding interesting, and I've seen it in some of the Mandalorian bits, but also more this with just the shipyard where we had all the spies, turncoats, because they were all ex Empire people, and here seeing senators getting called out. But we'll talk it more. But it's just such an interesting time and space to be in. And like
Absolutely.
you said, like, no one's really sure about where to talk about, like, where all the other Jedi are. For me, the fun part is this is the birth of potentially the First Order and things like that. It's just a time space that we don't see much of.
Exactly.
Haven't seen much of before.
Yeah.
And I think, as we described in episodes 1 and 2, it's almost like a reverse Andor in a sense. It's
Yes.
kind of, and in that sense, it's really interesting having that, the troubles of the New Republic. But yes, we'll get into that. I think we should kick off with our saber points for this episode. We have saber point 1. Hera and the New Republic.
Yeah, it fits in exactly here, Chris and John.
I
This
should
is
have looked at
exactly
the
why
notes
everybody
better.
should read the notes beforehand.
Sorry.
Our discussion really starts off with Hera Syndulla here. We talked last week about the fact that she has got a very high position in the New Republic. She is a general. She is well respected within the group. But here, we kind of see the trouble that she's going through. The past as a leader of the rebels, having her own ship with the Ghost and with Phantom, she effectively rallied troops around her to go on whatever mission she wanted to. And that kind of was her role within the rebels. She was much more of a leader of the group. Here she has to go to this effectively New Republic committee and ask them for their blessing to go on a mission, or ask them for their support to send in more troops to go along with them. And we see that political side of this new republic. I was going to call them the new empire there, but this new republic is similar to the faults that we've seen in the past in shows like in Andor. They're making similar mistakes once they're getting and creating this new republic. They're all senators trying to please their people, and they don't want to get back into a new war. So even though they have a decorated general telling them there's something bad going on here.
Absolutely.
They're
5
distrustful of her.
Strepsils general.
The 5 Strepsils general, yes. Even though they have her telling them that they need to watch out for this, they're not willing to go along with her and effectively undercut her argument.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was really good. I loved Genevieve O'Reilly again, even though she was in hologram form as well, because as Mon Mothma, I just loved how just the expression of her eyes, like you can see she's weighing up the politics of it. And that is the point here. It's that, it's the Navy or the Army butting up against the politics of this. And I love how it's kind of made it all a bit murky, because at the end of the day, the Senator Ziono who questions Hera's approach, it could be a perfectly sane thing. As far as they're concerned, he's gone. It could be a false hope, rather than a new
Absolutely.
hope. But it could also be that he's implicit within this sort of rumor mill and, the new empire. And you get that from, at least for me, from Mon Mothma kind of just, you could see the contemplation in her eyes and thinking the thought that she's doing. And also from Hera's quote that we had at the start of the podcast, did you fight in the war or just sit it out to see who wins? In a sense, an opportunist. And is he being opportunistic with this notion of a larger plot that involves a Grand Admiral Thrawn? And
Absolutely.
This is kind of a part of that defense, infiltrate the politics as much as build a whole new fleet or whatever they're doing. So I just really thought this was a great little scene that just echoes, as I say, what we've seen in the Bad Batch, but also almost like a reverse Andor in a sense.
And what we saw in the fall in the prequels as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Because we've seen politics be used before. And that's kind of, for me, was when we saw in the previous episode, the shipyard being essentially a fair amount of it, because I think she said a lot of people were taken into custody. I think that she said a number, but a majority, we'll call them majority of the shipyard.
Well, certainly the entire control room all set
exactly.
for the Empire.
Pretty
So,
much.
Yeah.
Well, they were all killed, really, apart from their manager.
Yeah. For me, that's like, we now know that a large proportion of Empire staff swore an allegiance, an oath to the New Republic, and that's just words, as Hera says.
Well, yeah.
So for me, it's the most interesting, and I think they're planting those seeds.
Mm-hmm.
What will come from that and what will germinate out, be it in this series or in future series of the films, that's what I'm really interested to see, because I've talked about it in our discussion on Bad Batch. If you really want to know more, go back. Bad Batch, all episodes now on where you get fine TV podcast, industry podcasts.
Absolutely. And on this very Star Wars podcast feed.
Yes, on this feed, exactly. But really, for me, it's seeing the parts you don't get to see in a 2-hour, 2.5-hour, 3-hour film. They would have cut this, really, because it's just a bit of an intrigue. You're like, oh, is he working for them?
Well, that's it.
It would have been ended on the cutting floor. For here now, I'm like salivating on the idea of, oh, there's more, now there's politicians and not just shipyards, and oh, is he working to bring Thrawn back? Is it the First Order, or is it actually a proto First Order, because the First Order is a different thing in the future, and that comes out of whatever Thrawn does, and it comes on the back of. So it's just, for me, it raises a lot of questions, but not what I've talked about with other shows before, where it's too many questions. It's not giving me the answer. This is just, it's just giving me that taste. It's what Filoni does very well.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of, other than Mon Mothma, it was like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, which of these senators is the imperial loyalist? Okay.
This little piggy went to market. This little piggy went
Yeah, exactly. But actually, it makes the scene, you kind of just, I was really analysing it, because, ultimately, Senator Xiono was kind of the one put on that plinth, really, and possibly the obvious target, but then you just kind of like go, you just never know. So it just makes you kind of look at these scenes really intensely. So I really like that.
Because he's very quick to say, maybe this is just a ruse of you to get the resources that you want to find your friend Bridger, and it's like, do you know what Hera did for you before the war as a leader of the rebels? Do you know what? If she wants to commandeer a few ships to go and find Ezra Bridger, I think absolutely she has the right to ask for that after everything that she did. And if she has a mission and a possibility of finding Thrawn, hey, how about you actually support her,
Yeah, but weirdly, what did we watch? We watched Oppenheimer, about someone who helped the US win the war and then effectively try to destroy his career. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's like really in that kind of...
It's in that vein.
That kind of vein. Yeah.
Now, in fairness, I will just caveat all of this on episode 3 of Star Wars Ahsoka, that I don't expect this to be on the level of Oppenheimer.
No, it's not. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Or on the level of Andor, even. I think the show is going to likely touch on these subjects throughout the show. I don't think we're going to get that dark show from Andor that we got in Star Wars. But it is a really good scene. I think it's very good to show what Hera's really like as a general here as well. Because in the last episode, she was a supporting character, someone that if you didn't know who she was, you knew she was connected with other people. But her having a scene here about what she needs and her position and the powerful position that she is in, I suppose, I think was important for it as well.
Quick call out, because I don't know if you did it in the last episodes, because I did the sacrilege thing and haven't listened to our own podcast.
Chris, with all that extra time that you have, how have you not listened to the podcasts?
Mary Elizabeth Winstead, just fantastic. Actually embodying the role more than I thought she would, because I was like, she is a well-known actress. She is like on her own right. I know, so Rosario Dawson is as well. I get that, but I was just like, when the cast announcement happened, I was like, I can't see it. Mm-hmm. And then I saw the makeup, and I was like, okay, I can see it, but now can she? And I'm like, no, she has that stern mother kind of like general. She has that, and she has that tone perfectly down. Yes, she does. Especially like you kind of started to see in some of the later episodes of Rebels, of what Hera became, and just that kind of fantastic.
She's really good, and married to Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, Ian McGregor. So she does have that Star Wars connection in her own universe at home. And you mentioned, Chris, with a great lead on to the other point of this, Mother Hera. We get to see Jason Syndulla for the first time in live action.
Yeah, fantastic.
We only saw him for about 5 seconds at the end of Rebels because of the time jump. But Jason Syndulla is a very important character in the universe, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I actually don't know an awful lot because my only introduction to Jason is through Rebels.
That episode of Rebels. Yeah, it is literally the only time he's appeared on screen. But the reason why he's important is a bit of Star Wars lore here.
Go on.
Jason Solo was the son of Han and Leia in Heir to the Empire. A Force-sensitive child who has a very important role to play. So the fact that we have Jason Syndulla, the son of Hera Syndulla, and Kanan Jarrus, who was a Jedi, the fact that we have him here on screen at the start of the Heir to the Empire storyline means maybe Jason is a very important character to watch.
And very highly Force sensitive as well.
They've foreshadowed it as well because he's, I want to be a Jedi because now she is too.
Yes,
I can be one.
Sabine.
Did anybody else complete his line for him? Because I did, where he said, I want to be a Jedi, and I immediately went, like his father before him.
Exactly.
Yeah, immediately did my own Darth Vader with like my father before me.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
and it was great that he was being probably the worst babysitter, which was Chopper.
Of course.
telling him all sorts of stuff. I do have to say, I'm glad Chopper was in this episode again.
Only for
definitely for me. Need more Chopper.
Of course.
But that's just me.
Yeah, we have to have it. But I did like the fact that he's already gotten the rumors of Sabine Wren going back to Jedi training. Like that happened one day ago. And Jason's already hearing it from Chopper. Chopper's like spilling all the tea when he gets home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be brilliant.
No, it was great having this little moment with Jason and having Chopper there. So yeah, it was really good. But I think we can move on to our saber point number 2. Yes, it is the training of Auntie Sabine.
Oh, some other classic callbacks here.
It is. It's funny actually. The training scenes in the Star Wars universe. It's kind of a love-hate relationship for me because it feels so like school. I'm like, I want to just stop, just be like, do the shorthand proficiency where it's like, can't do it, a few episodes later, they're masters. And it's kind of like...
So you're basically like, do or do not try. There is no try. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I'm going completely against Yoda's philosophy. But I just mean... I just kind of...
It's literally his philosophy.
Well, that's true. No, but I mean, I'd want them to do not and...
Do at the same time.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Be good.
Yes.
Exactly. But I actually really enjoyed this one. I just thought it was... Because Sabine doesn't have that sensitivity for the Force, at least not for now. No apparent kind of sensitivity to it.
I think, following on from the put down from Huyang last episode where, out of the thousands and thousands of Jedis over the last 25,000 years that I've trained, you're right at the bottom rung there. You're right the lowest. I love when Ahsoka hears that, she's kind of going, you didn't tell her that, did you?
Yeah, no, exactly. Really and I thought it was just good because I like the fact that you have what Huyang says in the last episode kind of leaking out and infusing into this, and Ahsoka going, you didn't tell her that, did you? But also, I think it's the fact that she's Mandalorian, and so a lot of her weapon skills are actually really proficient, and you get this kind of... You almost get this kind of sort of tension with Sabine because she's handy with a weapon, but as Ahsoka says, you need to train your mind because your proficiency with weapons, grappling hooks, even swords and lightsabers won't prepare you for the enemy that we're going to face. You need to have the Jedi mind, and that training in the mind. I think she says, talent is a factor, but training and focus are essential.
Exactly.
So I really kind of like that, to be honest. And for me, again, I'm absolutely loving Natasha Leigh Bordizzo as Sabine Wren. I think she really...
She works so well, doesn't she?
Yeah, she works so well. Like you were saying with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, it feels like really, really good casting. I just like her intonation. There was some of the look she gives and so on. It's really good. Even the fact that she is, gets frustrated with Ahsoka, that just feels so Sabine Wren. Yeah. So I'm absolutely loving this portrayal from her.
Definitely.
For me, I understand what you mean about just get good. You almost want that 1980s montage.
Yeah, exactly.
Gonna have a montage.
Yeah.
And just
which was literally what was in Empire Strikes Back when Luke Skywalker got his training.
I know.
So you kind of for me, I enjoyed this because this reminded me, it's very much, and it's actually more Favreau than Filoni does this. I got the feeling of like a Kurosawa kind of Japanese Ronin samurai training, bringing his own little one up. Like, that's what I felt.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. The music that is used to underscore the fight between Ahsoka, or the training scene between Ahsoka and Sabine, is just gorgeous. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. Brings you back to such great Japanese martial arts movies.
Absolutely. And even the look of the area in the ship just looks like that dojo with the center circle then that lifts out to become the table.
So cool.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, like, that's what I felt. Like, but again, that's the interesting. This is Favreau influencing Filoni, and Filoni influencing Favreau in other ways. And kind of obviously, he took for Mandalorian, she took Ahsoka for Mandalorian in that episode. So interesting to see some of that coming over. The only bit I was like, come on, where was the cup scene, the mug? She's focusing on the mug, and they were focus, and then like she gets called away. Yeah. We'll discuss that part in a second. But the call, and they lingered on the mug.
It's like Inception.
Yeah, and it was just like, because I was expecting it to shift a second, or because what I thought was going to happen was it was just delayed and it was going to explode or fly off. And it's just like, okay, so her force works on delay. It kind of like, she's got to like move it up a bit. But again, they didn't even do that or like an inch, kind of a centimeter kind of movement.
Exactly.
So,
do you know, I love this description here in the show. That they've talked about this right back from Star Wars A New Hope, the idea that the force, it penetrates us, it binds us, it's in everything in the galaxy. And we've met our Jedi that are really powerful. This is the chosen one. This is the one that can manipulate the Force better than anybody else in the entire galaxy. And now we have Sabine, who effectively Ahsoka's just saying to her, everything has Force in it, but I can't use it. No, everything has Force inside of it, but I can't use it. I have no way to manipulate it. Look, just focus. You'll get the hang of it. It won't be amazing, but you have the Force because everything has the Force in it.
Well, that's it.
Do you think they'll make her a legendary lightsaber duelist? Because her Mandalorian skills with weapons and stuff. Because we saw in Jedi Survivor, Cal Kestis did the gun and saber combo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think they might do it that where she is she's able to pick up and she's doing both dual sabers and then
100%.
kind of Bo-Katan?
I hope so.
That's just on her. Yeah. She's a weapon. She is a weapon. Her force, she can move the ball an inch. That's about the best she can do. She's not going to bring a Star Destroyer down with her bare hands.
Exactly. Yeah, but we'll leave that to Ahsoka because Ahsoka can definitely do that.
But I'm sure it's in books and comics. But the thing I love about this as well is just the fact that Ahsoka says herself, I'm not a Jedi, I can use the Force, I have been trained, but she never sort of passed the exam, ultimately, that Yoda was going to set her.
Well, yeah, because he accused her of murder. But...
No, I know, but I know exactly, but I was trying to keep it a bit lighter. But I also where Ahsoka's I don't need Sabine to be a Jedi. I need her to be herself in the same way as Ahsoka.
Yes.
But it's even then with Ahsoka herself when Huyang points out that she is from a long line of unorthodox Jedi. And I like this unorthodoxy within this show around Ahsoka, Sabine, but also with Baylan Skoll as well. You know, having the orange lightsaber, being a mercenary, not being light or dark. In a sense, a bit like Ahsoka to some extent. She's not a mercenary, but she is against the dark side, absolutely. But she's no Jedi either.
Exactly.
I love this. It really complicates that Jedi Sith lore, which is still fantastic.
Yeah.
But it can add so much. And I just think that's really, really good.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, the interesting things about Ahsoka as the character. You know, she was a war-trained Jedi and trained by a master who was never eventually turned into a master and eventually himself became Darth Vader. So she has a very unorthodox, path to her power. But I do think, exactly as you say, Chris, I do think the path for Sabine here is this will become another weapon in her arsenal. And that's what Ahsoka's trying to give her. She's trying to push her on this path of these are great tools to use, even if you're not the greatest Jedi in the entire galaxy. There's things I can teach you about that will help you manage yourself. You know, there's that great moment in the fight where Sabine lunges out and Ahsoka's response is, yes, by using anger, it will gather power together, but it will make you unstable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, she says anger and frustration are quick to give power, but they also unbalance you.
That's it. That's very close. Yeah. I was very close.
You were. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, you were very close. One last thing from my side anyway as well with Huyang. His quote for me, was after that first training, which I kind of like the whole sticks with the light that he could then analyze afterwards.
Yeah, where did you cut? You didn't hit the green.
Yeah, and then he goes, not bad, not good, enough to get by, barely. Yeah. Just that final bit of a put down. I just thought, I do like Huyang. As I said in the first two episodes, I would love to see Huyang and Chopper as the new C-3PO and R2-D2.
Without a doubt.
It'd be really good.
They are, it's not David Tennant using a full David Tennant, just sassy English Scottish man, just go for it. It's be posh and look down on everyone, even people who made you or could cut you up. Just look down on them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Stiff upper lip and looking down your nose. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, and as we mentioned last week, it is really cool they brought it back from the Clone Wars animated series. But the one thing I found out this week, because everybody's doing their analysis, the one thing I found out this week that really made me laugh is this character, Huyang, is actually considered a professor droid. So it's Professor Huyang played by Doctor Who, which I think is fantastic.
That is quite cool.
So could we even, if anyone is good at art in our fellow rebels, please just quick harangue in a tweed jacket with just the leather patches on the elbows, pure Oxford professor kind of with the 3-piece button as well, and just going whole hog, maybe in a rowing boat at the same time.
Now, if Matt Smith was voicing him, I'd go with that as well. Okay. That would be perfect. Maybe he gets his voice box replaced at the end of this season.
Maybe
and Matt Smith takes over.
Could do.
Michael Sheen.
Hey, we've just finished covering Good Omens with Michael Sheen and David Tennant in it. Michael Sheen and him could definitely replace each other. They're both as good as each other.
Definitely. Shall we move on to our saber point number 3?
Absolutely.
Please. So, the reason I said please, this is the one I'm dying to ask more questions about, and I'm hoping you can explain to me what a certain sky creature lore is, because I was like, kind of think I understand this, but okay. I'm going to ask more questions. So, Johners, take it away.
Yes, it is the dogfight in the Denab system. And of course, as Chris is referring to, the Purgle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the space creatures. So they, as Derek's already mentioned, so they are able to travel through hyperspace.
Yes.
Their tentacles will start to glow, and they are the creatures that effectively wrapped around Grand Admiral Thrawn's Star Destroyer at the end of Rebels and took him and Ezra Bridger to, I guess, on the pathway to Peridia.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm guessing. Anyway.
Yeah.
And so they are able to, they kind of migrate. So they're almost like space whales, I guess. But the reason why they became important, and maybe why Ezra Bridger was protected from that journey and subsequently Grand Admiral Thrawn, is that, Ezra, I can't remember what episode it was, but effectively connected with them.
Yeah.
So it is like that whale thing, really. They were being shot at, and they were trying to get into gases in a big pit, but there was a big mining operation. It was one of those episodes where, but he kind of helped save them and stop them being fired on. But in that moment, connected with one of the Purgle, just through eye contact and so on. And so I think, there's that they are like whales or dolphin, that kind of thing, I guess.
But it's one of the cool things, I suppose, that you got from Rebels. We mentioned before that it has more of a spiritual underside to it than a lot of Star Wars does. But if you think about it from video games, Chris, it's definitely a good reference for you, and particularly with Star Wars video games. You can max out a certain ability within particular heroes. And in Star Wars, Ezra's maxed out ability, the thing he's most good at, on top of everything that he's learned as a budding Jedi, his maxed out ability is ability to connect with creatures, connect with the Force that's inside of other creatures. We saw it multiple times.
Sort of talent, really, and
but it all
built
up all the way through until he eventually connected with the Purgle.
Yeah.
This was kind of the end game, connecting with these amazing creatures that can travel through galaxies.
Like it's probably as well the Force adds onto that as well.
Okay.
So but it's even with the Loth Cats and the Loth Wolves.
Yes.
Those creatures, because the Loth Wolves as well were Force sensitive creatures. Yeah.
They're
but also
the black and white one that we saw in the first, in the actual mural.
Exactly. Yes.
And also then with the owl, there was this owl, because he pulls back. I can't remember the name of it, but it's kind of this dark space where he was able to pull Ahsoka back from Darth Vader. So,
the space between worlds.
Yes, that's exactly it. It was space between worlds, and so he has this real innate ability, as Derek says. So it's that, and so that's why these creatures flying through the clouds above Seatos are so important
and so interesting.
That's cool.
And of course, Dave Filoni is drip feeding some of this stuff for people that haven't seen Rebels before. But I do wonder, given that this was Ezra's biggest power as a Jedi, it has to have a place to play here in the show, right?
Absolutely.
If we're not going to see Ezra, maybe his Grand Admiral Thrawn using his powers. I think there was a line from Morgan Elsbeth last episode where she was saying that Thrawn is calling out through time and space. Ezra is known to be able to move through time and space with the space between worlds and move across galaxies with the Purgle. So potentially Thrawn's amplifying his message to his troops using Ezra. And something like that, maybe.
Exactly. And the other side of it as well is, I just call them space whales, but they actually have like octopus legs. So they could be like space squid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because all I have in my head is the Douglas Adams Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it got turned into a whale flying through the air. And I was just like, oh, that's his ancestor.
Well, it's interesting as well, for this point, I have a question, which was, why were those fighters, why did they have literally the worst lasers possible? the 6 fighters that attacked Ahsoka's ship. I mean, I know she's got deflector shields and so on, but it was like literally
Stormtrooper level shooting. It was like, look over there, pew pew.
It
why
wasn't
did you
even
shoot
that.
all the way over that way?
They actually hit the ship multiple times and around the engine, and yet nothing seemed to happen. It was more Elspeth's cannons that caused the damage.
Yeah.
And I was like, and even the sound of it sounded like these were kind of the cheap starfighters.
Oh,
that
they
got,
are. Yeah.
You know?
Remember, they've just had a battle that took out the entire empire. So these are literally the cheapest, crappiest stuff that's available. Maybe built by the single sole surviving stormtroopers. So they've probably fitted the firing mechanisms on the wrong way round and stuff. So.
Yeah, like I felt really sorry for Shin Haiti being strapped into one of those, which basically had no protection of its own, and its like lasers were just seemed pretty weak. But
yes.
Maybe that was the purpose.
With the Crimson Dawn, like these kind of henchmen, they look like kind of not even bounty hunters, but just kind of run of the mill henchmen. And I was just like, okay, well maybe it's Crimson Dawn down on their luck. Sorry, for those who don't know, Crimson Dawn is the kind of criminal syndicate gang. We've seen them in Solo. We've seen them in a lot of lore and previous kind of TV shows and stuff. But I just thought because they looked down on their luck kind of gang, and I was just like, okay, maybe Crimson Sons kind of now they've the New Republic's taken them out. It's like kind of reminded me of the pirates from the latest Mandalorian. Yeah. Where they're just kind of like, you're not the greatest looking guys, and you're kind of patchwork slightly, but you'll do.
Yeah, but very much so. I'd say that's kind of what Morgan Elspeth has surrounded herself with as mercenaries, right? Yeah. Potentially, Bale and Skull brought them on board as extra mercenaries. What I did find fun about it. Look, again, this is Star Wars. This is based on a kids show. It's based on kids movies, really, with Star Wars themselves. But what I did love about it is our two major named characters fight in the battle, but they don't get touched with Marok and Shin. Neither of them get touched. All four of the other unnamed characters that were wearing masks and slightly looked like mercenaries, all four of them destroyed in this awesome dogfight. I really, really enjoyed this dogfight.
Me too.
And especially another lesson being taught here. We have Ahsoka effectively trying to give the lesson of trust the Force to Sabine while she's trying to make the shot on these oncoming enemies. And Sabine rightly is going, look, not time. I'm a good shooter. I'm able to take care of this. Let's get rid of the lesson right now. And Ahsoka is the one that learns her own lesson here. Trust in Sabine to do what she does well, and takes instruction from Sabine on how to fly the ship to give her the best chance of taking out the enemies. And the minute she does it, 2 enemies gone, you know?
Yeah, well, that's it.
Really like that there's that back and forth between the two that's been talked about in episode 1.
Ahsoka's ship is so cool with that kind of delta wing able to swivel around the main point, because that was it, you know, when she said, I'm going to split them, and she just moved the wings so that it kind of split them, confused them, and Sabine could get the shot in. But even then, when Ahsoka goes out into space after they're kind of they're dead in the water, or dead in space, I should say. I love the fact that, you know, again, it's I guess a teachable moment. She's saying, I'm doing this to distract them because we're dead in space. But then once Sabine has the ship up and running again, I loved how she tilts the delta wing in order for Ahsoka to get back in. And Ahsoka says, you know, neat trick, you know?
Yeah.
So the ship is really cool. I love how they're using that in this dogfight as well. Absolutely. It was really good.
So done.
Also, the Jedi jumping. Even Jedi jumping in space.
Yeah.
It's the coolest looking lightsaber ballet level stuff.
Yeah. I must say, I did laugh as well, though, with Ahsoka floating there in space, and she just like, did you fix the ship yet?
Can you come get me?
Can you get me back inside, please? Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. I love the fight. I loved the battle outside as well. I really enjoyed having Ahsoka go up against other ships outside and doing the Rey Skywalker, I guess we can call her now, doing her jump to avoid the ship coming towards her. I thought that was really cool having this in the show. Definitely felt like Ahsoka from the Clone Wars. Ahsoka's kind of battle style tends to be bouncing off objects around her, so it's not something we'd probably see live action Rosario Dawson do, but having the explanation that she's outside in space makes a bit more sense of that, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I liked it.
Yeah. The other thing as well, just to bring it back to the hyperspace ring, with the scan that Huyang said, he says the ring is of can go astonishing distance and speed, but the thing that kind of immediately came to my mind was, okay, it's got these massive hyperdrives that are much bigger than any other ship, which will that propel this hyperspace ring? Or the fact that the Purgle were there, and I'm like going, is Elspeth going to utilize their hyperspace ability?
She's going to net them
exactly,
and just get pulled along by like a sled.
It's kind of, exactly, it's something, she's going to somehow utilize them, and that's why they're in the Denab system over Seatos, because you have Purgle that migrate around here, and it's something on those lines. And it was, in terms of with the Night Sisters and why there's that temple there and so on, and the ability that from this point you can get along the pathway to Peridia.
Yeah, it's effectively, I know Huyang says when he's done the analysis that these rings are built so they can travel along the routes that the Purgle travel. Purgle have got the ability to travel through galaxies and travel massive amounts of distances, but they travel along specific routes.
Yeah.
And that's what this ring is created to mirror almost. It's trying to do the same thing that Purgles do. But it's interesting, they could be harnessing up the Purgle. It's so big as a ring that they could just stick it around the Purgle latch themselves on.
And Huyang does say, potentially with the ability to jump between galaxies. So it could just be off its own bat. But because we were introduced to the Purgle here, I just wondered whether there was something that was going to involve them.
I took it that it was more because it was a Star Destroyer that he jumped through. She's building that to then, it kind of sits around the Star Destroyer and kind of pulls the Star Destroyer back. But they're on that place because this is the migration path. It wasn't, yes, they had it as a straight line. It's not a straight line, but it's the path out to. I do look forward to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Are they going to go to the other side of the galaxy? Or does it pull what's on the other side of the galaxy back? I would love to see them go to this fabled, legendary Peridia, because it's kind of like El Dorado. Remember, in all of those things, you're always like, oh, you're never going to get to Atlantis. You're never going to get to El Dorado. When they get there, it's like,
Well, that was it. That was it. When Huyang said the enemy vessel is still under construction, so there's a bit of hope if we can destroy it. I was like, don't you dare. we need this to jump there.
We need to, I want it, unless they do kind of like, what was it, Jonah and the Whale, where they're going to get eaten by a Purgle whale, and then the Purgle, it's like 2 years later, we're here. Outside, they open up the whale's mouth. It's a bit stinky in there, but overall, it was cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent stuff. I think that's it for our main saber points.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can just expect to see Balin's lackeys hunting down Sabine and Ahsoka and Huyang, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. It sets up well for.
Yeah.
It's a 6 or an 8 episode arc. 8 episode arc. Yeah. Oh, that's even better. In my head, I had this as a 6. I'm like, oh, this is already halfway point. It's like, we have a long journey ahead of us. 8, this is great. When next week kind of gets us to the midway and we can kind of take it further.
Yes, exactly. Good stuff. Any notes from anyone?
Loads, because I forgot to put them in as we talked through the points that I specifically made, so I would talk about the points. The callbacks to New Hope with the training of Sabine. We didn't even mention them. The training itself happens while they're going through hyperspace, exactly as Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker's training happened. I love that. I loved spending some time in hyperspace. They used it so often in movies after the first Star Wars that they didn't spend time while they're doing the traveling. It's still a journey. There's still time that they spend there. So I love that they use that time for training. But also when the blast helmet is put on top of Sabine, she says Luke Skywalker's exact line of, how can I train in this? I can't even see, and laughs. So exactly as Luke Skywalker said in his first introduction to the Force. So love that.
Also, just Sabine in the tail gun as well. I think just really reflective of Luke in the Millennium Falcon's gun turret as well.
Yep, don't get cocky, kid.
Yeah, exactly.
But they also got rid of her presets.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, there you go.
Silly people. Never
get rid of the default template.
Never do it. Not the ones that your shooter on the ship has set to make sure that they're perfect for them. Two other quick things about the training that I really liked. Just to call out, Sabine says she's going to be fully dedicated to this training. She says she's going to give it her all no matter what. So, just in case anybody thinks that she's complaining too much about the training and the forceful way Ahsoka's putting it to her, she does underline, I'm here to train. Yeah. I will give my everything. And I want to just kind of push back a little bit on you, Chris, about the scene with the mug, because that was absolutely every single friend of mine and me back in the 80s after watching our first Star Wars movie, trying to move cups with our mind. I think it was just a nod back to all of us after we saw our first Star Wars movie, going up to shopping centers with automatic doors, pretending that you had the Force to open and close them, So I think it was just a nod back to all of us Star Wars fans.
Sure. I'll push back on you. I did it myself last night.
There you go.
There you go. It's not just as a kid. You're like, I can do this and I focus hard enough. The Force is in me. I am the Force. Aneurysm, and then you've got bodies. But
let's hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not.
Good stuff. The only other note I've got is I just like the kind of frisson of tension between Elspeth and Shin.
Mm-hmm.
And even, like at the end of episode 2, you have Shin asking the question to Baylan, what is in it for us?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, and the mercenary aspect here to Baylan and Shin, it's like, how's this good for me?
Yeah.
And actually, you pay me. It doesn't mean I have to like you kind of thing around
exactly.
with Elspeth. I just kind of like that back and forth. Yeah.
There's a really good bit of tension there. And I think part of it is in the last episode, Elspeth was like, you send your apprentice off to this planet without any information at all. She had to wait for Baylan to explain it to her. And then in this episode here, I love the put down of, oh, well done. You almost got her.
Yeah, exactly.
really good tension between the two of them. So, looking forward to more of that good stuff then.
Yeah, good stuff. Let us move on to our final thoughts. Chris, what did you think of Ahsoka Part 3?
I really enjoyed it. It's a Filoni filler. I used this outside before we recorded, and I don't mean it's not derogatory. We didn't move that forward in the actual storyline, but they filled it with enough that you're like, okay, I'm getting tasters for what's potential. I'm getting some kind of, it's an amuse-bouche between courses.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's kind of, it's just something to cleanse the palate, but just also like with some nice lemony, minty kind of succulent herbs to kind of make you, ooh, now I'm fresh and ooh, that's a nice taste right there.
Give me more. Hungry now, Chris.
Yeah,
exactly. Have to stop recording just before dinner. It's a bad idea.
But for me, it was that. It was, we have the taster of Sabine in terms of where she's going, her potential, the Purgles and what that could mean about us going to the legendary city and planet, the how they're going to get there, Ahsoka's training, and then just fun with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, as I said, it's a Filoni filler, but in the best sense. It's not it's just, I'm happy where this episode leaves me. And again, I thought this was a 6 episodes, so I'm even happier now that I'm like, oh, we've got even more episodes to discuss this. So yes, loved it. Derek, what did you think of this episode of Ahsoka, episode 3?
Loved it. Really enjoyed it. Lots of great fun moments in here with the training. I thought that was cool. The dogfight was awesome. Ahsoka fighting outside was really cool. But actually getting to see Hera with this very fledgling New Republic and having that moment where you realize the New Republic, same as the Old Republic, they may fall again pretty soon. We've kind of seen that happen. But I kind of like those moments in there, seeing a bit more of her character. And hey, we got to see her son Jason and Chopper once again. It's always a good addition to the show. So some other characters to follow for the rest of the season. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's really cool. I think Ahsoka herself as a character is such a strong central presence to the show, even though it is this big cast that's surrounding her. She does feel still very central in the show in this third episode too. So as that kind of stoic warrior with something to pass on to the next generation. So I really like that. Overall, enjoyed the episode. Wish it was longer, of course. A 30-minute episode as our third episode. Feels like a live action episode of Clone Wars because they were always 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, but good fun, good stuff. How about yourself, John? What's your final thoughts on Ahsoka episode 3?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. A bit like self, it is that small or short amuse-bouche. Like, I did feel the shortness in this, but I still really, really enjoyed it. I'd give it 4.5 purring Purgle out of 5.
Nice.
I think just having Jason on screen, I love it. I love that they're referencing all this stuff from Rebels. It is literally my favorite Star Wars animation. So having Jason, really good. I'm glad you kind of explained with the Jason Solo thing because that had been wiped from my memory, dare I say it. And I just think really good to see him. I love just as well that family aspect of Rebels, so him calling Sabine Aunt Sabine was great.
That's so cool.
I love just how Sabine and Ahsoka's dynamic is really that they're both these unorthodox people and potential Jedis, and just the different pathways that they have taken, like Baylan Skoll as well. Actually, just not enough Baylan Skoll in this episode either. I really enjoyed Ray Stevenson in the first 2 episodes, but we'll definitely get to see more of him, I'm sure. So I love that relationship. I love how it played out with the training and with the dogfight, both of which was just really, really good. Still question the lasers on those dumb fighters. It hardly seemed worth it. Yeah, well, there was like
versus pew pew pew. It's like,
I had a laser. I can't be bothered to do this. It was just like, okay, but it didn't distract from anything. It was really, really good. And so 4.5 purring Purgle out of 5 for me.
Fantastic. Blue milk, anyone?
Ooh, definitely. With a bit of vodka in it, or Romulan. Oh no, wrong universe. Just vodka, I guess. Okay. In the blue milk. Yes, it is, fellow rebels and fellow quizzers. Time to go to our Cantina pub quiz for this season of Ahsoka. So remember that you will be in with a chance to get your hands on some Star Wars Ahsoka goodies if you come out on top of our Cantina quiz for this season. We are on episode 3, so of course that means, apprentices, that we are on to question 3. What Jedi technique does Huyang believe Sabine Wren is not ready for?
Ooh, very good.
I was not the mug.
Drinking.
Oh my goodness,
water.
look at you giving clues away, Chris.
I know.
Good stuff. Do you want to get the question one more time, John? I
certainly will. It is, what Jedi technique does Huyang believe Sabine Wren is not ready for?
Excellent. That's the third question of 8. Pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com if you miss out on any questions. But at the end of the season, send us in the correct answers to all 8 questions to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com, and you could be in with a chance of getting your hands on some Star Wars Ahsoka goodies.
Excellent. Let us get into our feedback for this episode.
And I am definitely using this as our sounder for our feedback every episode. There you go. Chopper's going to introduce our feedback for us every episode.
Excellent stuff. Yes, so first up, we got an email in from Coffee and Vodka. Greetings, fellow blind baton battling defenders. Very much a 6-minute scene extended into 35 minutes this episode. nonetheless gave us a bit of Sabine's potential, Huyang's dry wit, some literally whale-sized foreshadowing, a ton of action, and a bit more of Ray Stevenson's final performance.
Gotcha.
Not a lot to say, other than that I look forward to what this introduction has set up. A quick question though, do you think our masked flyer is Ezra, or is it just a space herring? Depending on the follow-up episode, a preliminary 4 Huyang haranguings, tea-spilling chopper chats, and stormtrooper-trained spaceship gunners out of 5. Peace and take care, coffee and vodka.
Everyone really did not like these gunners. Like, it's not just us. And everyone is like, oh yeah, tea-spilling choppers. Like, he gets out of, like top secret things, and he's on Trump level, kind of just selling the secrets.
Oh, he doesn't even sell them; he just gives them away and gets grumpy
exactly.
if you ask him why he told you.
Yeah, exactly. You can imagine he's got on some kind of planet in the galaxy. He's got a massive vault with a ton of credits.
Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. For me, I actually completely blanked. This was Ray Stevenson's final performance. I know it was. Once you said it again, I was like, oh god, yeah. Like, I forgot that this was such a big thing, before. Yeah, that's a bit sad, but, in terms of your question, we did address it already. I don't think it's Ezra. We don't think it's Ezra. I think it's a space herring, but I think it will be someone, I don't want to say important, but I think it will be someone that you'll be like, oh, that's going to be cool, because I don't think they'll demask him and then detach him kind of from thing. Like, this person will probably go on because it will be, you always need some bad guys.
Absolutely. So. It's definitely going to be Ezra, though, isn't it? Now that we've been so adamant about it. And we might have to bring in our sounder from Good Omens then, John.
I think we might have to, yes.
You were right. You were right. I was wrong. You were right.
So we might have to do that.
We might have to introduce that for a lot of our podcasts.
A lot of this series, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Good stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Over on Facebook, Alex Baelish says, this episode was good, but it did feel like a good table-setting episode. Can we stop with the 30 minutes episodes, though? Dave has done this before. There were some great moments, of course. They are making a great effort to turn up the excitement, and that dogfight was crazy. Ahsoka getting out of the ship and seeing the Purgle moments were so cool. I did love Sabine's training. It's such a throwback yet timeless moment. As someone who practices martial arts, it's amazing to see this in live action.
Excellent stuff, Alex. Yes, I've always kind of wanted to do martial arts in some form or another, but I just don't have the lower back for it, I guess, anymore.
And you've been spending too much time in the marital arts.
Personally, for me, it's like just because I have my own gravitational field. When you throw an orange in, it just kind of circles me like a Death Star moon. So it's just
That's
like
no moon.
Exactly. Thanks, Alex. And yeah, I think we've already discussed how much I absolutely loved Sabine's training, and I think all of us did, is the callbacks. Next up, we did get some feedback from the one and only Dr. Bob Phillips, who had this to say: if you've got a high-tech fighter planes and a trio of aces, you should put them in a dogfight. And they did this spectacularly with 1-on-3 Not a Jedi versus NPC crafts space dance added into the mix. Terrific whales, though I did expect a stray green laser bolt to catch a tendril and make Marok, the baddie assassin droid, into an empirical Jonah at one point. What made Huyang shut down? How does one turbo a laser? Does everyone in the New Republic just have a wardrobe with the same clothes to reduce decisional regret in the morning?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think we all need to simplify our wardrobes, to be honest.
Exactly. What they don't tell you in a galaxy far, far away, Mark Zuckerberg was the one who actually picked out the actual choices, and it was just black t-shirts and pants, and it's just evolved slightly into that. It does explain some of the explains the droids essentially as well.
Well, that's it. And the simplicity of their sort of Strepsil high command in the army as well.
Yeah. Remember, we are also in post-war New Republic era, so I'd say they're they'll eventually get back on the fashion pathway.
Yeah, I guess they
don't have a replicator yet.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
They've got the Rag and Bone Men, the space Rag and Bone Men collecting all the stuff and sort of, they're recycling, reusing.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
I do love the call out of how does one turbo a laser, though, because I've definitely heard of turbo lasers many times and never questioned the separation of those two words.
And I'm also suspecting as well with the green laser bolt, I was thinking exactly the same thing as they were battling between the Purgle, and after seeing what it didn't do every time they hit Ahsoka's ship, I'm guessing the Purgle it just scratch that itch for them.
Exactly.
To be honest.
Exactly. There is one question in here that I think is a legitimate question. How did Huyang shut down? And it was because he was connected into the ship to do his readings. And when the ship got hit and taken out, he overloaded. Yes. So just quite funny, the connection between that and in last week's episode when he was telling Sabine not to overload the head of the droid and she pushed it too far. This time he's the one that pushes it too far and gets overloaded and shuts down.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't connect those. That's interesting. Yeah. Well done.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Dr. Bob. We also had Richard Blaze, who says, the Force was strong with this episode. I absolutely loved it. Lots of A New Hope vibes throughout, but repetition is flattering when it's done this good. Ahsoka's fight in space felt very much like something direct from the Clone Wars, and it was great to see. Nice as well to see the new senators making the exact same mistake as all previous senators that have gone before them, burying their heads in the sand when warned of immediate danger. Absolutely. 3 episodes in, and this is already the makings of a classic Star Wars story. Roll on next week. Great stuff, Richard. Thanks so much. Yeah, definitely. Politicians, always looking out for themselves, I guess.
Absolutely. Thanks, Richard. Joe Herbert says, I've only watched some animated shows, so maybe that affects my experience, but the show is kind of slow. Didn't feel like much happened this episode. I'm still interested, but hope it picks up since there are only 8 episodes. Ahsoka taking out a fighter during a spacewalk seemed silly. Why would a fighter ever get that close to a ship drifting in space? Especially if you know there's a Jedi on the outside. Just slow, stop, and blast it. Stuff like this definitely feels more like belongs in an animated show. Thanks for your thoughts, Joe. At least you're better than Chris. He thought there were only 6 episodes this time around and thought it was a really slow episode. So at least we have 8 episodes. You know, do need a little bit of a table setting episode to get all of our people in the right spot. But I hope it does pick up from next week for you.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, I think, given Dave Filoni has come from animation and this is his first live action, I'm guessing there's a stuff in here that maybe he's thinking about from that perspective. And as in terms of it translating, I guess at the moment I've personally have enjoyed it, or it's, something different. Like, in fact, just that idea of them doing spacewalking, it's not a big thing so much in Star Wars, but you do see it. You do see it in Empire Strikes Back with the meteorites. Yes. You have the whole battle on one of the Star Destroyers, sort of port side in The Rise of Skywalker. So, I guess that also didn't really seem too far-fetched for me. And also because Ahsoka's a Jedi, I guess. So they can do strange and unusual things. But thanks, Joe, for the thoughts. Really good to get them in. Definitely hope it picks up for you in the next few episodes.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. We next got some feedback from the one and only Victor Von Doom. Yes, Victor, we need to get you a more Star Warsy Von Doom kind of thing. So maybe we'll both think of that like a Sith version of Von Doom.
Victor Jedi version of Von Doom.
No, Von Doom is a bad guy, so it has to be Sith.
Only from some perspectives, Chris.
Yes. Darth Victor. Let's say. Okay, from Darth Victor, we have this feedback. Greetings, New Republicans. opening scene was a nice callback to Obi-Wan training Luke on the Millennium Falcon in New Hope. New Republic politics don't seem much different to the Old Republic. Mon Mothma could have used Admiral Akbar to help convince the Senate committee to investigate the Denab system, but he'd probably just say it was a trap. That's from Chris. Huyang is brutally honest. He did not have to put down Sabine. The younger Sabine might have given him the Greedo treatment.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I was happy to see some good old-fashioned space dogfights. The spacecraft design is reminiscent of World War II fighters. Ahsoka's environmental suit combat was downright scary. Jedi or not, she is indeed powerful. Still waiting for Sabine to start tossing bombs and grenades. The Force will be with you always. Victor Von Doom. Sorry. Darth Victor.
That might stick. We'll have to let Victor choose whether he wants that or not.
Yes.
Good stuff, Victor. It is really interesting to see that battle outside the ship from Ahsoka. We kind of mentioned it earlier on. It does feel much more like a character from Clone Wars, and something that we probably wouldn't have seen. I like that they've justified it by her being out in space as well. It's
Absolutely.
Cool. But yeah, she's got some power on her.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Victor.
Thanks, Victor. Russell Hooper says, when is Hera going to say, screw Republic High Command, go grab the ghost? If we don't see that ship done properly in live action, the show is a failure. Go collect Zeb, Rex, Chopper, and Jason, and go join the fight. Also, we long-suffering Star Wars fans deserve much more than brief 30 minutes episodes. 45 minutes minimum episodes this short don't move the story forward, especially in an 8-episode season. They've got to go back to the American-style 24-episode seasons. If Paramount could do it in the 80s and 90s with worse filmmaking technology than when they started Star Trek, multi-billion-dollar Disney can do it with Star Wars. I'm afraid next week will just be Balin's goons hunting Ahsoka and Sabine only to be slaughtered in the end. Sabine will show she learned something, maybe revert to her old days out fighting by using explosives or something. Sadly, this episode only gets 3 silly Jedi space flips out of 5. Not a bad episode, just average at best. Thanks, Russell. Do you know the one thing I definitely want in this show that Russell's just put back in my mind again?
What?
Where's live action Zeb? We've seen him in The Mandalorian. Yeah. He's definitely still active. He definitely survived through all the battles with the Empire. He is off fighting on the right side at the moment. So we're going to see Zeb, aren't we?
We must.
No, 100%, because we've seen him with the New Republic.
Exactly.
He's going to bring in his friends from the New Republic, that fighter group. Yeah. And that him and Hera will come in as kind of the cavalry with Ghost to kind of, whenever they come back out of the transport and they end up back on this side of the galaxy, they'll be there to support where there'll be a massive Star Destroyer. Excellent. Sorry, I know I'm writing parts of that, but I'm assuming that's going to happen because we have to see him.
Yeah.
He's the last of the rebels.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting, won't it? Because just going back to the theory that Marok could be Ezra, and that discussion that we said, maybe it's almost like an inverse, the 4, 5, and 6, where it's like Ezra is dark and they have to bring him back to the light. Who knows? But I don't know. It's just something with the discussion there. It's just like, maybe you could just flip it round, do that. But,
exactly.
And I certainly, I look forward to Hera, sort of basically giving the 2 fingers to the New Republic High Command. I wonder if Chopper would have something to do with that.
Yes, I'm sure he would. But, I know you've seen the animated series, Russell. They do have to kind of set that up for other people as well. They do have to have that challenge built in for Hera, don't they? That she is not getting what she wants. So screw you guys. I'm taking the ghost, basically.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I'd say you're probably right. We're probably going to see her.
I think so.
Take a sabbatical to go and fight the fight that she needs to fight. Yeah.
Definitely.
Fight the good fight.
Exactly. Thanks so much to everybody for your feedback. Keep sending it in. Email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. There's a spoiler post up there for each episode of Ahsoka as it comes out, and you can leave your thoughts on there.
And if you liked what you've heard in this episode or the previous two, don't forget you can head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where you too can be like Chopper and go wah, 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 and support us for any ongoing monthly amount. Yes, you can. Just by throwing us a few galactic credits each month, you help keep the lights and mics going. If you ain't got any monthly amounts, don't worry. It's all good. You can also go on a one-off donation by heading on to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, and that help keeps Derek in caffeine or blue milk, depending on the night, or green milk, depending on the day.
Or red wine.
Or red wine. He also then just keeps us kind of podcasting away because he is our editor supreme and producer supreme. Ain't got any galactic credits or ongoing blue milk credits? No problem. You can support us by subscribing at tvpodcastindustry.com and sharing the podcast because, like Chopper, we want you to spill the tea with everyone you know and tell them about this podcast because sharing the podcast is what, gentlemen?
Sharing the love.
Of course.
Exactly.
Of course.
As our podcaster in chief, Derek, I think we'll need to get you a 5 Strepsil badge to wear.
I will definitely wear that if I got one. Without a doubt. Yeah, there's lots of editing going on at the moment. We just covered 6 episodes of Good Omens from Prime Video. I really enjoyed that show. Just finished and released that as we're recording Ahsoka today. And then we move on to The Wheel of Time Season 2. The Wheel Weaves or The Wheel Wills is coming out on Prime Video this weekend. 3 episodes they're releasing. Why? Does it has to happen?
I know.
In the week where we're doing so much.
Why do they have to concertina it
Just
all
all the time.
together? Yeah. But if you are a fellow wheelie as well, in disguise, as a fellow rebel, or vice versa, then of course, pop on over to our coverage of The Wheel of Time Season 2.
Yeah, looking forward to
Make sure
covering.
you find out everything that's happening to Mr. Althor, the Dragon Reborn.
Yes.
He's accepted his fate. It's gonna get so good. The great hunt is upon us. Ladies and gentlemen, you may understand that I really love this book and series.
Excellent.
Moving forward, though.
Yes.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. And then we're moving on to even more shows as the year goes on. We're going to be crossing over with Gen V, the boys' spin-off show, which is coming out, I think, while The Wheel of Time and Ahsoka are still running.
Yep.
So we've got lots and lots of stuff to talk about on TV Podcast Industries. So make sure you subscribe to the main feed for TV Podcast Industries. We do have a feed for each of the shows that we're covering. You can go find the Star Wars feed with all the Bad Batch, Ahsoka on it, and you can go find the Wheel of Time podcast with Wheel of Time on it, and you can go find the Good Omens podcast with all of Good Omens on it.
Yes, absolutely. Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, fellow rebels, for joining us for episode 3, or should I say part 3 of Star Wars Ahsoka. We will, of course, be back with part 4 next week. But in the meantime, keep watching, keep listening, and may the Force be with you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about
Star Wars podcast.
Am I mad of
How
practice?
is it? Oh, why is it not written like that then?
Because
I
I never write the full intro. Wait till you get the synopsis that you haven't even read yet.
I know. This is the Star Wars podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Star Wars, the show. I can't say her name.
Ahsoka.
I know, it's because you telling me about the H. I'm now all confused. This is the Star Wars...
And rounding out the trio, come on, there is both Lark, there is both light, dark, and the grey. Should we move
Love it.
on
I think
to
that's it for the Hera and the... you seem to be
slowed.
Desigged from us, Chris. Are you okay on internet? Are you okay?
I've reset it, but is that better?
No, that was 30 minutes ago.
I was more... Can my clap?
That is the most delayed clap. fantastic, Chris. Do
Do you want
Can
to
you
do
hear
another?
me now?
Yeah.
It
Do you
is
want to
very
do?
clear.
Yeah.
No, it just started to lag for a second. Now you're fully back, so it's all good.
Okay, we'll do one, shall we?
Sure, why not?
3, 2, 1.
Huzzah! Da, 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 da.
Right.
Yeah.
You take that.
Depending on the follow-up episode, a preliminary for Huyang haranguing.
You are so close. You were right.
Depending on the fellow.
The Fellowship.
Depending on the Fellowship of the Ring, and a preliminary data analysis by Engineer Scotty. Jesus. Depending on the follow-up question, a preliminary for Huyang
Sorry,
haranguing.
you said question for some reason. Okay. I guess it's last day of August fireworks. Yay!
Oh yeah, that makes. Remember.
The last
August
day of
31st.
August.
remember your summer holidays, kids. Bye.
Bye.
Off to school.
Just go.
Exactly.
Fix it in post.
Yep.